All right, so we're here on the 98 YZ400. What we did either earlier on or later on in this episode, depending upon how I edit, is we captured some of the tires being swapped over on both of these bikes. Unfortunately, I didn't notice that something had happened with the camera when we went to go ahead and start rebuilding or sealing the forks here. So we got the WR completed. That went fine. The problem we had with this bike was we were able to get that side completed right over there, but this side right here has a bump stop right towards the top, and it seems like water had got in here at some point, because as you'll see when we tear it apart, the spring is a little rusted, and then like I said, the bump stop pretty much disintegrated, and it seems like that was because of water being in the system. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and take the front wheel off, disassemble the front end here so that we can get this shock off, and we'll kind of go in depth on tearing this one apart since it's pretty much the same across at least these two bikes. So we're going to start tearing it apart and we'll pick it up from there. Alright, so everything up to this point is fairly easy and not too difficult with how tight things are. But once we get up here towards the top, you want to go ahead and loosen this cap up before you take this out. So what I did is I've left these tight down here to keep a good clamp on the tube, and then I've loosened these up here in order to try to get this loose. With these loose, it doesn't clamp down on that tube, which in turn kind of takes some pressure off of those threads. I've had pretty good luck doing it this way. This one we didn't leave too tight since I knew I was going to be rebuilding it anyway, but we went ahead and, this one's tight over here. So we'll go ahead and kind of demonstrate, getting this off. So I kind of need two hands here, but you can see there, that's turning. Alright, so we're gonna go ahead and get this taken off. What I need to do to get these off is I gotta put a flathead screwdriver and pry sideways in order to get this fork to slide out. You kind of see, once I turn this here, you can kind of see the oil buildup on and even how much oil is kind of seeped down there on this fork. Alright, so this is where we're going to do the majority of this cleaning this seal replacement process, just because the bench in the shop isn't really big enough. So I'm going to try to capture as much as we can right here, as well as being mindful to keep contaminants from getting kind of inside this assembly. So this has a caged spring in here on mine, so there really isn't a worry about this shooting out. So what I'm going to do is take this cap off, and then boom, you can see that just drops down. We're going to disassemble this. Right here is the bump stop that I was talking about. It normally goes right there underneath this cap, but like I said, this one disintegrated. So this is either an 18 or a a 17. Let's see here. Yeah, and you can see right there pieces of it just disintegrating out. Looks like it's probably 17. Yep, 17. Let's see how that just comes right off there. And we're gonna have to get all this out of the tube, this disintegrated bump stop. And I'm just going to work this in and out to get what last little bit of this old oil is still in there. Yeah, and this looks like definitely has some water in it. It's milky and it's gross looking. We'll have to make sure that O-ring on the top there is good. It looks like it's in decent condition. Yeah, and you can see that the inside of this tube has some rust, but pretty much I know I got the majority of the oil out when this plunger kind of just falls all the way out on its own, or close to all the way out. Yeah, you can see the water in there, clear as day. Alright. So now that we got the oil out of there, or the majority of it, what we're going to do now is separate this tube. Or actually what we need to do is take this dust seal off and take that little snap ring off inside there. You can see right there that dust seal. It's just absolutely covered oil. I'm sure the lip seal inside is going to look pretty bad too. So all you do is I get a little small screwdriver. I'm going to have to move this back here. And this will just be for later. You just get that in there, kind of turn it sideways, and it'll start to pry that out. Slide that up. Alright, then right in here, right inside this little groove, is this little snap ring. Boom, you can see it pop out right there. Now we can kind of take it in. Boom, just like that. There's that seal. I want to check inside the tube. Looks pretty good. You can see the rusty oil and stuff right there. Alright. Then what I do is go ahead and pop this up all the way around, slide that off. You want to keep this stuff in the same order that it came out, same orientation as well, just to help for reassembly. Definitely seen worse, but apparently it was bypassing. What we're going to do is get everything cleaned up. We'll go ahead and time lapse through that. Alright, so now that we got everything semi-cleaned off, we're going to start with the disassembly or the reassembly. So what you do here, for me, so I don't have the little installer tool, is you're going to want to put a little grease or oil on there normally. I'm not too worried, I think we can get her done. You just kind of use your screwdriver to work that lip in over. Don't put too much downward pressure. It'll slide over once you get to that point. And you just kind of work your screwdriver like in there, slowly prying that lip over with some downward pressure, and it'll make it over these grooves no problem. A little bit weird at this angle. I'm just trying to show the camera. It's normally a little easier when you have it faced up and down. Okay, now that we got a little bit of it worked over. Cool. As you can see, it did a good job there of wiping what little bit was not cleaned off. So now I like to slide this over. You can kind of put this over whenever, but just to help me remember. And we just do the same thing with this seal here. You always want the lip. Oop, don't want that. Yeah, you want the lip putting pressure towards where you're going to seal. I think this one we pulled out might have been backwards. Let me go look at the book real quick. Alright, so fortunately for me, this sealing surface here doesn't really have any pitting to where it would make the seal, the new seal, bad. Alright, so it looks like these were actually installed correctly. It wants the manufacturer's markings right here to face down. Boom, that's a tighter seal right there, and it even got a little more oil. Alright, so then we're going to slide the bushings on, and the little washer there, and then we're going to put this little copper retainer on. Boom, then that's good. Alright, so now what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and make sure this is cleaned off. I still got a little residual down there. Inside the tube looks good. So what we're going to go ahead and do is slowly slide that in. And we're gonna bring this dust seal back. What we have here is this little seal installer. I'm gonna kind of slide this thing in by hand just to make sure it's lined up correctly. We're gonna go ahead and slide this over the rod. Oh, wrong way. And what we do is you just kind of slide this up and down right there into the seal. It's best if you kind of have someone to hold this chrome rod in there. And you just want to get the seal in there until it's past the groove for the retaining clip. And then once you can seat the retaining clip in there, all the way around. That's how you know your seal's good. Now, it doesn't take a whole lot of force. You don't need to, you know, hammer this thing in there per se, but you do want to make sure you get it in there straight. So let's see here if our retainer clip, well, it's under the groove on that side, and we'll just see if she wants to snap in all the way around. Alright, so that clip's wanting to go in, but I'm having to kind of force it in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it back out, and I'm just going to kind of lightly hammer this back in. Alright, and then what I find to be a little easier when these are being stubborn is to kind of take one of these the half clamps here and use it as kind of like a race driver. We'll take that off for now. You kind of angle it out, and then you'll just do some light taps in there and try to get it seated a little bit more. Do one little more, one just in case. I think we're good. Now it just slots right in. No pressure, nothing. That's what you want. Alright. Let's spray this off. Got it a little dirty. Spray that lip off too. Alright, now what we're going to do is just finish installing this dust seal. Be kind of a pain. We're just going to hold it. So I don't like how that's installing kind of just on one side. So we're going to go ahead and do the same thing. Where we just take it, kind of hold it off there, and then use this, kind of slowly drive it in. If you feel too much resistance, then it's probably pinched. You don't want that. And what you want is it just make sure that you don't have any gaps right here all along there. And you can kind of see there that looks like it's sealing and cleaning that tube real nice. Alright. Alright, so this isn't going to be super precise. This is the measuring tool that I got. You want to slide this all the way down. Let me check my spec real quick. Alright, so for my bike it wants 3.15 to 5.91 inches down until you see, or until you touch the oil level. Let me make sure I can even fit this down in there. Probably not. Of course not. Well, let's go figure out what plan number 2 is. Alright, so here's what we got. Got a little white mark on there. That's going to be 4.5, so I want it just a little bit underneath there. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to slide it pretty much down to that mark every time. And it actually rests right on that collar perfectly, but for now we're just going to start pouring some oil in. That was a mostly empty bottle already. So. One of these is going to take most of one of these bottles. Now what you do is grab this rod, where you work it up and down. So then what you can do there is you're getting the, if you hear that, oh, it's getting real stiff. So I'm going to put the cap on this just to make it a little easier to pull up and down. You hear air bubbles, or like it's sucking air, it means you want to add some more oil. So now we've done that a number of times. I think they say 10, but just as long as you feel like you've kind of soaked up the amount of oil you're looking for. Push that back down. Let's go ahead. I can already tell I'm going to need to add some oil, so we'll go ahead and do that. My official measuring tool go. I don't have any oil on there yet. Hope that's enough, because that's what we got. Definitely have a lot of oil on there now. We're going to work that piston up and down just to make sure that we've got enough in, inside that tube before we pour some out. Right, I think that's good. We'll take this off and let it settle. Alright, so we're sitting right about there as far as the oil level goes. We're going to want it to be just barely touching in order to meet our mark. Since I have limited amounts of this oil, we're going to do what we can here to pour this back in. Just in case. Alright, shouldn't take much. So we're sitting right about there. So we're making some progress. We'll just pour a tiny bit more out. That's probably good enough. The reason I'm saving it is just in case I pour out too much, I still have some good oil to pour back in. Alright, so right now we're just barely touching the tip down there. We're going to go ahead and remeasure. Alright, I like the look of that. We're probably sitting 4.6, 4.7 area. But that's good enough for me. So that's going to be kind of the interesting part, is getting that spring assembly all back together on here and bumper and everything, and then because this will want to drift down. Let me get this screwdriver ready. Oh. Let's try to feed it our way back up. It's kind of one of those things like, how quick are your hands? The reason I'm feeding this back up is because I really don't want to have to compress that spring to get the top back on. We're going to put this on here for now. So I want to just make sure that I have this part that this rubber bump stop that we had to buy in the right place. Alright, so how this is going to get fed in there is with this washer in here, this right there. Make sure I have this held. I'll spin this off. I'm just going to stick the wrench on it and try to use friction from the wrench to hold that while I put everything back together here. Oh, losing it. Oh no. Oh, just don't go back down. And I keep accidentally pushing this down when I'm trying to get the threads to start. I think actually I'm just gonna, oh, that ain't really gonna work. Alright, looks like I caught him. Cool, that tightened up real nice. Let's get our 19. We'll go ahead and snug this down. All right, there we go. Give it real tight, doesn't have to be super tight. All right, grab the bottom here. Just thread this top piece on. That seal on the top looks good. All right, then we'll tighten that down once we get it back on the bike. Screwdriver. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and orient this to where the bleed is towards the front, because that's how I want it. Spread this. We're a little far, I'll pound it down. I'm just getting them even. All right. Oh. All right. I'm going to go ahead and tighten these bottom ones. And we'll go ahead and tighten up this top one. All right, that's nice and tight. And we'll reassemble. Alright, so we've got it all reassembled here. And what I was doing going through there, since this was a reassembly, was I touched on all these bolts, especially brake caliper and you know, all the hardware, all your clamps up here with a ratchet, just to make sure it was all nice and tight. Yeah, and you know, that's kind of the gist of it. It's really not that hard. So we're gonna wrap this video up. I'm gonna start it up because I did swap out the needle and the main jet on the bottom for a 163, I believe, earlier today from my old carb to kind of clean up some of the running issues, and it got it running really good. I can typically get it started one kick, at least today. But if you guys like what you see, please go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. Thanks for joining us.